Antalya, beautiful isn't it? However, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. After my recent visit, this is why I will never visit Antalya ever again. As soon as you land, it's a daunting task to just get a simple taxi. You have to firstly navigate past the taxi touts at the entrance who are simply there to rip you off. Once past this and at the official taxi stand, it's then another challenge to get them to abide by their own rules and laws. Now the law says that taxis should be using their meters, but often in Antalya they don't and will make some excuse or just outright refuse even though it's a legal requirement for them to use it. The police clearly don't enforce the law, hence the taxi drivers refuse to use it and get away with it. By not using their meter, they can simply charge what they like. I had to argue and insist that they use a meter when I landed. This is not the welcome to Antalya that anyone should expect. This pattern of rip-off taxis continues when you're trying to get out and around in Antalya itself. I got so fed up of it that I decided to hire a car when I needed to get around. It actually worked out cheaper to hire a car for the whole day than a short single one-way taxi ride. On the way back to the airport it was no better, and since they had you at a disadvantage since you had a flight to catch, you had no choice but to pay their extortionate rates. If you haven't seen my review on Corendon Airlines, then I'd recommend watching that to get more of an insight into this particular rubbish low-cost Turkish carrier. We've all gotten used to low-cost carriers in this day and age. However, we've also gotten used to what to expect from them. With Ryanair, for example, we all know where we stand in terms of booking, check-in and seat selection. Some Turkish carriers are still behind on this aspect. Unfortunately, these low-cost carriers don't have the tech to fully enable people to use facilities such as online check-in and so on. This leaves people guessing what to do as your experience is different depending on which airport you're flying from and to. In the case of Corendon, their punctuality and communication isn't great. At least with Ryanair, you know there's hardly ever any delay, and when there is, the website is usually updated or you'll receive some kind of email about it. You get none of that with Corendon. While we're on the subject of airlines, let's talk about Antalya Airport. It's a very modern looking airport, at least the check-in area is. However, that's where the good part ends. The check-in area itself is huge, yet it hardly has any seating other than a few dotted around the edge. Therefore, when there's a delay, you're simply left standing in a huge check-in hall. Once checked in, most people would imagine grabbing a snack or a meal before their flight, but get ready for your wallet to be rinsed. The prices are some of the worst rip-off pricing I've ever seen at an airport. In the UK, we're used to paying a premium at places like airports and motorway service stations. It's the accepted premium for such a location, especially when you have a captive market. However, Antalya Airport took this to the extreme. For example, I had previously ordered a meal from Popeyes at the Antalya Mall. It cost £2.50. Can you guess what the cost at the airport was? Pause the video and comment your answer below to see if you're correct. It wasn't double the cost, not even triple the cost, but 8 times the cost. £20 I spent. I wouldn't even spend that much on an equivalent meal at an airport in the UK. It's outrageous that they're doing that here in Turkey. Now you're probably thinking this is just an isolated incident and maybe it's just Popeyes that is expensive and has a huge markup, but no, Burger King next door had very similar outrageous prices. I know this as well because I remember what the prices were at the Burger King in the Antalya Mall. The maximum I would accept is 100% markup, but 800% markup is just taking the mick. The rip-off experience continues with shops. From souvenir shops to even pharmacies, no one seemed to miss an opportunity to rip off an unsuspecting tourist. For example, I brought a drink from a small shop. There were no labels or pricing on the product or shelf. I ended up paying 80 liras. Wasn't sure if that was good or bad at that point as I didn't know the true cost. Later on I found the same item at another shop for 7 liras. Just crazy. A second example is a pharmacy. You'd think that they're there to help people and would not be in the business of ripping people off, but even they aren't partial to a bit of tourist rinsing. I needed a nail cutter. I found one with no pricing on the product. I ended up paying the equivalent of £4. I instantly knew it was a rip-off as you can get the same nail cutters for £1 in the UK. But unfortunately, with no other options around, you're simply forced to accept it. Luckily, I found a chain of shops which aren't a rip-off. They have most of what you need, including items found in pharmacies and even souvenir shops at the true cost of what they should be. The pricing is clearly labelled, no haggling and no ripping off. The shop is called Migros. They are a supermarket chain in this region. After discovering this place, I ended up buying most of my items from here. The hotels, at least in this area that I was staying at, which was Lara Beach, were all squeezed in together. It really felt like mass tourism on steroids. It wasn't pleasant, and I've realised it's not what I would look for in a hotel. A holiday is meant to be an escape from your usual urban life. The hotels here made it feel as though you just traded one dense urban environment for another. While on the subject of hotels, Lara Beach in Antalya isn't bad, but it's not great either. It's a gritty, coarse sand, not what you'd expect when someone says sandy beaches. It's another reason to not bother with Antalya if you want good beaches. Now, there really isn't much to do nearby, at least that was the case with Lara Beach area. There isn't really a great amount to do other than just to stay in the resort. Most excursions and places of interest are quite far away. Most things involve a day trip and can be quite hard for families with young children, and in any case the excursions are your typical items such as quad biking or some form of water sports. Antalya doesn't exactly scream culture. For that, I'd recommend Istanbul. Antalya is more of a European style mass tourist beach resort than a centre of culture. Talking of Europe neatly leads me on to my last point. People in Antalya seem to have an obsession with pricing everything in euros. Now, I get why they'd want to. With the lira essentially tanking and being quite volatile, people might want the stability of a euro to hedge against their home currency fluctuations. However, the tourist ends up losing here. Pricing everything in euros means that they are also pricing items at levels found in major European cities. We all know that European holidays are more expensive than most Turkish destinations, which is why many people come to places like Antalya to decrease their cost of a holiday. However, pricing everything in euros essentially wipes out any potential cost saving that you might have expected here. Turkey, or at least Antalya, can no longer be considered a cheap holiday destination in my opinion. In conclusion, Antalya is one of those destinations which I won't be visiting again. It's just not a place that appeals to me. Which is a shame, as my previous visit to the Hilton Dalaman in the Marmaris region was a positive experience and is what spurred me on to book Antalya. I would say though, if you haven't been, then it's still a place you want to go to, even if it's just for the sake of marking it off your bucket list. Hope you found this video of some use. At minimum, it might help you to avoid some of the negative aspects if you're already planning a visit here. Then again, let me know in the comments if you think I'm talking total rubbish and I'm completely wrong.